In the heart of the South African wilderness, where the winds sang ancient Zulu songs and the land stretched far beyond the horizon, lived a young woman named Safiya. She was the pride of her village, admired for her grace and beauty, but it was her wisdom and deep connection to her ancestors that set her apart. Safiya had always believed in the power of love, and her heart had long been entwined with Njoro's, a brave warrior who had shared her dreams since childhood. Safiya and Njoro had grown up together, their bond blooming like wildflowers on the open plains. They would meet in secret under the shade of ancient trees, whispering their hopes and dreams, dreaming of a future where their love could flourish without restraint. But their path was not destined to be easy. Safiya's family, while loving, had arranged her marriage to Kibo, a man of great wealth and power from a neighboring village. Kibo was much older, respected, and feared by many. The union between Safiya and Kibo was not about love, but about power, a strategic move to consolidate land, influence, and position. Safiya's heart, however, was already spoken for. Though she tried to accept her fate, her thoughts always returned to Njoro, the man who knew her soul. As the day of the wedding drew near, Safiya became more desperate. She was torn between her loyalty to her family and the undeniable pull of her love for Njoro. For his part, Njoro too felt the weight of their situation. He knew the importance of tradition, but he also knew that his love for Safiya was something greater, something sacred. It was a love that had been blessed by their shared experiences, whispered dreams, and the deep-rooted belief that they were meant for each other. One fateful night under the glowing light of a full moon, Njoro made a vow, a sacred promise whispered into the wind and heard by the spirits that roamed the land. Zulu tradition held that vows made under the gaze of the moon were binding, carrying the blessing or curse of the ancestors. With his heart heavy but determined, Njoro swore that no matter what stood in their way, he would fight for Safiya and rescue her from the marriage that she did not desire. The next morning, the village was buzzing with preparations for the wedding. Kibo's men, clad in vibrant traditional Zulu clothing, had gathered in numbers, ready to escort Safiya to her new life. But as the sun began to set and the night's shadows lengthened, Njoro emerged, his heart pounding like the drums of the village, determined to claim his love. He made his way through the plains, knowing that Kibo's warriors awaited him. He could not face them all with strength alone, but his heart burned with the fire of a man who would stop at nothing. When Njoro finally arrived at the village gates, he was met with the cold, hard eyes of Kibo's warriors. The battle that followed was fierce, but it was not just a battle of strength. It was a battle of wills, of love against duty, of passion against power. Njoro fought with everything he had, but as the night wore on, it became clear that physical strength alone would not be enough. As his energy waned and the weight of tradition seemed too heavy to bear, Njoro turned his gaze skyward. The moon, his silent witness, bathed the land in its silver light. Njoro whispered a prayer to the ancestors, asking for their guidance and their blessing. In that moment, the wind shifted, carrying with it the voices of those who had walked the land before him. The spirits of the ancestors surrounded him, testing the purity of his love. Njoro closed his eyes, his body bruised and bloodied, and focused on the image of Safiya. Her smile, her laugh, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke of the future. With renewed strength, Njoro rose to his feet. He pushed forward, not just with his body, but with his heart, and soon the warriors of Kibo fell back, one by one, until there was no one left to challenge him. At last, Njoro made his way to Safiya. She stood at the edge of her family's compound, dressed in her wedding attire, her face streaked with tears. She had not wanted to marry Kibo, but her sense of duty had kept her silent. Now, seeing Njoro before her, she knew that the ancestors had answered her unspoken prayers. Without a word, Safiya ran to him, her heart pounding in her chest. As they embraced, the moonlight wrapped around them like a protective cloak. But their journey was not yet complete. Before they could leave the village, they were confronted by Kibo himself. His anger was palpable, his voice thunderous as he demanded that Safiya honor her family's agreement. But Safiya, for the first time, found her voice. She stood tall, her hand in Njoro's, and declared her love for him in front of the entire village. This union was not made in love, Safiya said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I cannot marry a man I do not love, no matter how much wealth or power he holds. My heart belongs to Njoro, and it always has. For a moment there was silence. The villagers looked on, uncertain of what would come next. But then, as if the ancestors themselves had spoken, Kibo lowered his head. The power of love, it seemed, had triumphed over tradition. Kibo, though wounded by the rejection, could not deny the purity of what he had witnessed. And so, under the light of the moon, Safiya and Njoro made their vows to each other, not out of obligation, but out of love. The spirits of the land, the wind, and the ancestors bore witness to their union, and the village, though bound by tradition, could not help but honor the strength of their love. Together, Safiya and Njoro walked into the future, their hearts entwined,